how can you reach out to media and blogs to feature your startup and advertise it in the media? That's a great question. So Mark Benioff, who's the founder of the largest company in San Francisco called Salesforce.com, he had this one secret, and it's not really a secret because he wrote about it in his book. His book is called, I think, Above the Clouds. It's a great book. You should read it. And what he talks about in that book is how he leveraged the media in order to kind of get free advertising for Salesforce.com. And he did something controversial at the time. I remember this back in the early 2000s, right after he started his company in 1999. What he did was he would have a picture of software with a line through it. And he would say, software is dead. And the media was like, what do you mean software is dead? And he said, well, instead of having software running on your computer, let's run it from the cloud instead. And that's why he said software is dead. And he networked a lot with media personalities. And he made friends with the top 50 or so technology and finance journalists in the world. And that was free marketing for him. And you have to do the same. And the best way to do that is, you can read my free networking book. You can go to harounventures.com, download it for free. But the best way to do it is to network, to meet with reporters or journalists based on what you have in common with them. And so, as I mentioned in that book, you might go to LinkedIn and do an advanced search to find people that work, for example, at the New York Times. Say that's where you want your article to be published, or somebody write an article about you. Find somebody that works at the New York Times as a writer that went to your school or is from your hometown. And you can do it on LinkedIn. You can do a search based on different criteria. Then you send them an email, as I discussed in my book, and you mention what you have in common. And you ask, do you have time to meet? And you keep it simplistic. You say, John, for example, hope all is well. I'm also a graduate of Concordia University, and I also grew up in Baie-Comeau in Quebec. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee. That's it. And you hook them with those two things you have in common. The university you went to, maybe Concordia, just making it up, great school. And then where you're from, I'm at Baie-Comeau, which is where Brian Mulroney, my favorite prime minister ever, was born in Canada. And what you do is you send that message and you use the word please and thank you. And you have to understand that people want to help you, especially people with similar backgrounds to you and to all of us. They want to help you. And if you're having problems understanding that or thinking that somebody might want to help you, then think of it this way. Let's go into the future 20 years. 20 years from now, you are way more successful than you are today. And this younger version of you reaches out to you from the same hometown, went to the same school, and says, do you have time to meet for a coffee? Of course, you're going to say yes to the younger version of you. People want to help you. You just got to ask. And the only homework I have for all of you right now is I want you to go to YouTube and search for 3 words after this call is over. Or now if you want, whatever. Search for Steve Jobs Ask. Watch that video. Because that video will change your life. Because you'll realize that, if you ask people for help a lot, and people have something in common with you maybe, they're going to help you. And in that video, Steve Jobs asked, when Steve Jobs was very young, like 12 years old or so, he asked Bill Hewlett from Hewlett Packard for help. And Bill Hewlett gave him help and a summer job as well. Because he asked. Not many people ask. And then many years later, and a lot of people don't realize this, it's a wonderful story. But in order to pay that debt of gratitude forward, what happened was this. This young kid called up Steve Jobs. And this young kid asked for, or younger person, I should say, asked for advice. And Steve Jobs mentored this person. And that person's name is Mark Benioff. So make sure that you network a lot and you ask, because business is not about product knowledge. It's about relationships first, then product knowledge or business second. So what you have to do, and your question here is about getting advertising or media exposure for your startup. That's what you have to do. You got to network with people that have similar backgrounds to you, using LinkedIn, using the methodologies that I teach you in this free book here. And that way you will get a PR. But when you go to those meetings, you have to be willing to help them as well. And so everybody is motivated by 3 things, usually in business: money, getting promoted faster, and enjoying who they work with. So if you help somebody to get a Pulitzer Prize, which is an award that Columbia University gives every year to journalists, If you help them, or at least, I don't know, guide them towards that path with a story, information on something, then they'll be eternally grateful to you. Eternally grateful. So find out what drives them. And from a generic perspective, it doesn't have to be with journalists, but find out what drives every single person before you meet with them. Just think about it. And when you show up to that meeting, help them with their business goals. And I talk about this a lot in my complete job course, where I help you create these one-page templates that you bring to interviews or informational meetings to help people further their career.